If there's one thing all dungeon masters can agree on, whether they are brand new to the game or have years of experience, it is just how hard running a game of Dungeons and Dragons is. You set so many high expectations for yourself, for your story, your NPCs, your world building, your quests, your encounters. It is a lot to deal with. And if you are anything like me, then you are an absolute perfectionist and you do not want to ruin any of it. So welcome to the MetaMagics channel. I am your game master, and today is episode 1 of GM Tips, where I go over tips, tricks, and general advice to help you run your D&D game as smooth as possible. And in this first episode, we're going to cover probably one of the most important aspects of running a game of D&D, getting the perfect session 0. So right away, you've probably heard session 0 being described as the session before the first session, where both the plans for the campaign as well as the characters are created. However, there are an enormous number of details that need to be covered in your own session 0, so in order to be concise to save both of us time, I'm going to go over my personal top 5 tips to have an awesome session 0. So starting immediately with tip number 1, set a date and stick to it. As any D&D player will tell you, nothing feels worse than waking up on game day only to read a message in your group chat saying that the session has been postponed due to some of the players not being able to make it because of scheduling conflicts. So take as much time as necessary to work around each other's school schedule, work schedule, or whatever schedule, because the rest of these tips do not matter at all if you can never get together to play. Tip 2, or what I should probably call tip 1.5, is something that I dub the needs of the many compromise. Now, what this compromise is the percentage of players required each week to have the session planned as normal. This percentage will vary from group to group, as each group has a different number of players. An example of this is if you have a party of 6 players and 2 of them for some reason aren't able to make it, you should still be able to host the session as normal with those remaining 4 players. However, if your party only has 4 players and 2 of them aren't able to come, then you should probably reschedule the session. The golden percentage you're looking to stay above is either 66 to 75% of your players. Meaning if you have a table of 6, you can get away with 4, and if you have a table of 4, you can get away with 3, etc. This seems to be the best number to keep the game flowing smoothly while also not hurting everyone's feelings. So in my opinion, you want to have this conversation at session 0 so that everyone is on the same page, no one's feelings are hurt, and nobody feels targeted when you still continue to have the session without them. Because while conflicts happen, the show must go on. Otherwise, you fall into a nasty pattern of canceling and postponing sessions until the entire campaign falls apart and you're left wondering what the hell happened. Now, for the actual tip number 2, set expectations with your players. For instance, you do want to have a talk about the tone of your campaign with your players. If you're running a pre-written module from Wizards, this is pretty easy. However, if you are making your own homebrew campaign, this step is very important. For example, if you're trying to run a sort of grimdark campaign and your entire party makes a bunch of bards who do nothing but crack jokes all day, something probably doesn't fit there. Although now that I think about it, that actually sounds quite interesting. Part 2 of setting your expectations comes with a few little details that come before you play, being the place which you decide to play, what people are allowed to bring to the table, etc. For example, at most tables, there are absolutely no phones allowed. The importance of these rules do vary from table to table, so you will have to check with your party beforehand. Or you could just say F the DM and decide to play RuneScape on your tablet when it's not your turn in combat. Part 3 of setting your expectations goes back to the tone portion of this section, being the type of characters you want your party to create. For example, if you're looking for a more low magic setting like Eberron, you don't want your entire party to be a bunch of wizards or other casters, so it's important to communicate. And the last tip regarding managing expectations is to communicate with your players on what their expectations are. A lot of players just want to sit around, roll dice, kill monsters, and get loot, and that's perfectly okay. Other players looking for rich stories of betrayal, political intrigue, and all the role-playing they could possibly want in a game. It's really important to find a balance between these two and seeing what makes each individual player happy. Because when the players are happy, the DM is happy. Part 3 of the recipe for a perfect session 0 is what I just mentioned, the character creation. It's a good idea to have all of your players make their characters at the same time in the same place so that there can be a good diversity of characters. Every D&D player likes to make a unique character, and it's not going to be fun when everybody shows up to session 1 with the exact same race and the exact same class by complete accident. Also, you can guide your players to make characters that fit directly with your campaign setting, as mentioned earlier. Tip 4 for the perfect session 0 is to review your players' character sheets. Now, this can either be done at session 0 or right after or before, at least sometime before session 1. This is just to check for any mistakes your players might have made when creating their characters on their sheets. This isn't to say that your players are actually trying to cheat or anything, but I cannot tell you how many times that one of my players accidentally added their proficiency bonus twice to their attack roll or saving throw or something, and it completely ended up breaking game balance, and we didn't find out about it until months later. So for the sake of your own sanity when trying to perfect game balance, check your players' character sheets. And the fifth and final tip, which really only applies if you're running a game for a group of strangers, is get to know your players. If you already have a group of friends who want to play D&D and you're looking to get together to try the game out, this doesn't really apply to you, but trying to run a game for strangers can be really nerve-wracking. So it's really important that you take the time to humanize yourself, humanize your players, and get to know each other as friends. See what kind of interests they have, what type of person they are when they're role-playing. It may not seem like a lot, but trust me, it will make a world of a difference. And those are my top 5 tips for having an awesome session 0 before you start your own D&D campaign. A primer, if you will. You may have noticed that there are a lot of topics missing from this video that are mentioned in a lot of others, and that's because these are my 5 most important aspects to be included in a session 0, as well as some of these I haven't seen mentioned in other videos. There are, however, many other aspects to consider, but those are saved for what I like to call session 0.5, which I will talk about entirely in a different video. So if you want to know exactly what I mean by session 0.5, be sure to subscribe and look out for that video coming soon. And if you have any must-haves in your own session 0 that you would like to include, please leave them in the comments down below. And until next time, happy gaming.